NACDL is the association of the nation's criminal defense bar.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar discussion, which is Second Chance Stories, Returning to Freedom. My name is Monica Reed. I have the pleasure of serving as Director of Advocacy here at the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. We are really excited to be kicking off Second Chance Month with this panel discussion. As you may know, national, state, and local groups come together from around the country to celebrate April as Second Chance Month, sort of joining forces to help raise awareness about the collateral consequences that are faced by those with a criminal record. But today we're also coming together to discuss the importance of providing a second chance for individuals who are currently incarcerated. Today we are joined by John Albanes, who serves as Legal Director for NACDL's Return to Freedom Project, which you will learn more about throughout today's discussion. He is joined by two individuals who he'll further introduce, who are volunteers for the Return to Freedom Project, as well as two who are released with the help of their volunteer attorneys. Before I turn it over to John to get us started and to moderate this panel discussion, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items today. First, we want to encourage you to introduce yourself, your organization, and where you're from in the chat. For questions for the panel, we ask you that you use the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. We do apologize if we can't get to your question, but no worries. Toward the end of today's conversation, we will share the contact information for today's panelists. I want to quickly highlight sort of NACDL's Code of Conduct for affiliated persons, which applies to everyone who attends our sponsored events, and that includes all of our virtual programming. To summarize, we endeavor to foster an environment that is free from harassment, discrimination, intimidation, and insult. And this includes any offensive remarks, comments, or questions. Unfortunately, if it's determined that you as an attendee have violated the code while participating, we will remove you from today's discussion. And lastly, I want to just lift up language, especially language as it relates to referring to those who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. We ask that you refrain from using any dehumanizing language and use language that restores dignity and humanity to those who've been directly impacted by our criminal legal system. Again, thank you so much for joining for today's conversation. I'm going to turn over to John to moderate today's conversation and to further introduce our panels.
Thank you, Monica, and a huge thanks to you for organizing and putting all this together. I just want to say welcome everybody to this panel discussion on second chances. It's a privilege to be moderating with our esteemed guests today. As Monica said, I am the legal director of the Return to Freedom Project. NACDL's Return to Freedom Project helps those serving overly harsh sentences seek post-conviction relief by partnering with firms and organizations to recruit, train, and support pro bono volunteers to secure clemency and compassionate release. Our federal initiatives include the Trial Penalty Clemency Project, which seeks to free people who received a harsher sentence for exercising their constitutional right to a trial, the Cannabis Justice Initiative, which is a partnership of NACDL with the Last Prisoner Project, which remedies the injustice of incarceration for marijuana-related offenses. As you may know, nearly 20 states have legalized marijuana to date, creating a multi-billion-dollar industry, but leaving tens of thousands of individuals behind, still incarcerated for the same conduct. And the Excessive Sentence and COVID-19 Project, which seek compassionate release for those whose sentences would be lower today due to changes in law, or who are at risk of serious illness due to COVID-19 or other health issues. And our work in the states includes or has included projects in Virginia, the District of Columbia, New York, and Minnesota. Since 2017, the Return to Freedom Project has recruited over 2,000 volunteer attorneys, filed over 1,300 petitions or compassionate release motions, regained freedom for over 250 individuals, sparing them over 1,500 years of incarceration, including dozens of individuals who are serving life sentences. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from two individuals who regained their freedom through two Return to Freedom Project initiatives, the Trial Penalty Clemency Project, and the Virginia Redemption Project, as well as their attorneys. We will hear from Shalana McFarland, a recipient of clemency through the Trial Penalty Clemency Project, who was freed after serving nearly 16 years in federal prison as a nonviolent first-time offender. Prior to her incarceration, she practiced law in Atlanta, Georgia, after graduating from John Marshall Law School. She is an honor graduate of Florida A&M University, where she earned her BS in journalism. We'll also hear from her attorney, Cynthia Roseberry, who is Deputy Director of Policy doing Criminal Justice Reform at the ACLU and was a director of the Clemency Project 2014, a historic pro bono initiative under President Obama that secured freedom for thousands of individuals and set the model for existing return to freedom projects. We will also hear from Sincere Allah, who received clemency earlier this year after serving 24 years through the Virginia Redemption Project. Sincere has hit the ground running, advocating for incarcerated individuals since his release. And we'll also hear from his attorney, Brendan O'Toole, a partner at Williams Mullen, who focuses on complex commercial litigation. Those introductions do not do our panelists justice. They have far more impressive credentials than I have time to go into, but I just want to thank you all for being here with us today and for sharing your stories. I'd like to start off by asking all of you on the panel what second chances mean to you. And any of you can take it away.
What second chances mean to me? It's redemption. It's the ability to show and improve my redeemable qualities. That's like in a nutshell. That's what it means to me. It means true freedom and true democracy. Like that's what it means to me.
I would likewise mimic what Sincere said, and I would also add that it means that you're being seen as a whole person, not for a period of time where there were various things that happened when you weren't at your best. When you look at a person's life, it's more than just a short period of time. But unfortunately, the justice system, you could have been the best person in your whole life, and you have a year or two where that's questionable, and that's all that's focused on. It doesn't look at everything that you've accomplished, everything that you are, and who you are to the people in your lives as you're taken away. So second chances is a chance to be viewed as a whole human being again.
Yeah, I think Shalana really said that well. I think a lot of times we think about second chances for people who have been directly impacted by the carceral system, but all of us have done something, right? If we've lived, and all of us want an opportunity to show that we're more than just something that we did. And that's what a second chance is for me. It's a reflection of the whole person and not just that one thing that they may or may not have been involved in the carceral system for.
Yeah, I would echo all of that. Like Sincere said, it's about redemption. I think it means you're greater than the worst mistake that you may have made. It means a recognition that people are not defined for the entirety of their lives by a mistake, and that they are capable of change. It means, I think also a word that comes to my mind is opportunity, an opportunity to be free in the sense of not just from incarceration, but free to live like everybody else in society, to have a family, to prove the doubters wrong, to be gainfully employed. It's about humanization, I think.
Very well said. I'd like to now ask Sincere and Shalana a few questions about their experience that'll hopefully, shed light on what it's like to be an incarcerated individual, and particularly what it's like to work with a pro bono attorney through our project. So first, for both of you, and again, anyone can chime in first. How did you feel when you found out that a pro bono attorney had taken your case through one of the Return to Freedom projects?
Well, for me, I felt kind of uneasy at first because, oftentimes, especially when, you do research on the law firm, it's this huge conglomerate of a law firm. And so that was kind of like a little overwhelming for me to believe that someone would want to take on, my case, especially after, 20 plus years of incarceration. And so at first I did think that it was more so, something to do because oftentimes things like this, especially when it comes to post-conviction litigation, like most law firms or attorneys, they're just like, they're kind of going with the flow. You're just another caseload, another person on the caseload. They'll get through a few things and a few formalities, and after that, you really don't hear from them again until, the courts reply to whatever they put in, whatever motions they put in. But for Brendan, it was different. He took a personal interest in me as an individual first. And I think that's what got both of us over the hump to, believe in the case itself. For me to believe in him, and for him to believe in me, and for him to proceed the way he proceeded. So it was important for us to, personally connect and not just look at pieces of paper and assess assess him about what I've read, or for him to assess me about what I've read. For us to actually sit down and connect as individuals was extremely important. So once we made that initial connection, I felt like this like something could come of this. This was my chance. This was the chance that I needed to save my life.
When I found out that NACDL was interested in my case in relation to the trial penalty, I was so incredibly excited because you guys are big guns. And just the resources and the name recognition I knew was going to be a springboard to get my case recognized and heard, because I'm no more deserving or more worthy than thousands of other people that are incarcerated across this country. I'm just fortunate that God favored me, and the NACDL, I came up on their radar, and Jane and Mary with NACDL talked to me on the phone and said, I'm really going to try to help you. And then I had so many other people trying to help me throughout the years. Cynthia, of course, who I've known since I practiced law in Atlanta. And, we used to dig for change for the parking meters when we were down at the courthouse. And we go that far back. And when she became, I followed her career while I was incarcerated, and I was so incredibly proud of her and her work. And then one day I get a letter from her, and, with CP14, and she says, hey, I want you to apply. This is what you need to do. This is the initiative. And I sent in all my work, and then I helped, I don't know how many other ladies that were with me to complete their packages to get to their attorneys. And as the project continued, most of them went home, and I was still there. And then I finally found out, at the end, that I didn't make the cut, and I was devastated. But you have to, and Sincere can really appreciate this, you want to have hope. But at the same time, you're almost afraid to, because it's not just you get your family involved, and then they start making plans. So when it happens, and it doesn't happen, it is a huge letdown for everyone. And then you have a lot of people that are incarcerated that have no hope. So then they tell you, I don't even know why you bothered. You're not going anywhere. You're going to serve all your time. And so you have to keep igniting your own little light. And so when organizations like NACDL or other attorneys, my appellate attorney, Lynn Fant, has been with me since day one. Even when we were out of appeals and there was nothing else to do, she would still reach out to me. And that just meant that I wasn't forgotten. And that is the thing about it, is that you have people that have lost hope because they're forgotten. And it is just so important. So even when you get a letter from an attorney saying, hey, I'm sorry, I can't take your case right now, but perhaps you can contact X, Y, and Z. You don't even know how much that means. That means a lot. So for all of you all that are listening, that have the ability to please have someone in your office try to respond. I know you can't respond to every letter that you get, But even if you can respond to one or two, you just have no idea what type of impact that's going to have on the mental health and the spirit of that person that's incarcerated.
Absolutely. I'm hearing hope. I'm hearing maybe caution or cautious optimism. That makes a lot of sense for individuals who are trying to regain their freedom. So on that note, I wanted to ask you too, what do you think brought you home?
It was a collaborative effort. That what brought me home was a kind of a perfect storm of events. Like all the stars were aligned. I put in a lot of work prior to even submitting this second. This was the second clemency petition that I put in, so I know all about what Shalana was talking about, like getting everybody's hopes up, and then including your own, in an environment that is filled with individuals that are hopeless and helpless, seemingly. So I was, as you said, cautiously optimistic. Like I really didn't want to tell a lot of people what I was doing. I made sure that the individuals that I was working with, like, please don't, put a lot of this stuff out, because I don't want to get everybody all excited and then, to inevitably get turned down or whatever, and have all that come crashing down on me again. So for, the maybe 10 years since my last petition, I put in a lot of work on my personal and interpersonal development. Like I really built my own human capital, so that anyone that advocated on my behalf, or anyone that ever came across my path, that I met, that I spoke with, that I did an interview for, they would understand the human aspect, the human element of myself. And so with Brendan, he connected with that. He and I connected on that level as well. And then my number one advocate, Juanita, she made sure that everybody knew who I was. And she continued to do that. So that was important for me. I think that's what brought me home, being able to connect with individuals who are making these life and death decisions about those of us that are incarcerated, humanizing, not just reading, a snippet on a piece of paper or a brief bio, but actually speaking and seeing the person whose life you're either sending away or giving an opportunity to. So that's what brought me home.
I would have to say that God brought me home, because it was my faith that kept me going, and allowed me to encourage other young ladies to keep fighting and to get whatever it is you can get while you're here, whether that means that you are working on your self-esteem, you're working on your fitness, you're working on your educational levels, anything to keep growing in a situation that's designed to stagnate you. So my faith is what I really believe brought me home, because I never doubted that I was going to leave before my 360 months, because I received a 30-year sentence as a first-time nonviolent white-collar offender. And my case was mortgage fraud. So America was safe when they locked me away. So all the deeds and titles were safe in the country. And I say that a little tongue in cheek, because the large banks that actually committed mortgage fraud, none of those executives went to jail. But I'm not bitter about it. I understand that God had me on a mission, and I was able to do a tremendous amount of good with helping the ladies, and even with the staff, with getting them to see us as human beings and people that are deserving of earning an opportunity for trust and redemption. And as I continued to do good, good came to me. And there was a lot of people, Cynthia, Lynn Fant, Jane Ann, the organization Aleph, Can Do Clemency, Amy Pova, who was just simply amazing and agreed to put me on her website as a white collar offender when she deals primarily with marijuana prisoners. But Cheryl Ward, who works with Amy, told her about me, and Amy said, we have to help you. And they were on board for 10 years. So this was not an overnight. Freedom is not instant. It's not something you just add water to and stir and suddenly poof, you're out. This was a lot of collaborative effort, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm so grateful to everyone, anyone that told somebody about me, about my story, that helped. And so finally it fell upon the right ears. And then, it was who knew we were going to have a president like Trump that decided to circumvent the pardon attorney's office and talk to the organizations. And I'm so grateful to Alice Johnson, who advocated for me as well. It was what I would call like the perfect storm that occurred. But I know that behind it, 100%, God was behind it. So I can't take any credit for what happened to me. I'm just so incredibly blessed and grateful for everyone that had any small part. And so I think it was, the Creator and everyone that had a small part that helped bring me home to my family.
Very well said. Given ye shall receive, right? So,
Yes.
Could I
Keep
add
believing.
one? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Shalana.
Go ahead.
please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, because I'm a lawyer, maybe I put everything into, it's like factor 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that, a list of things, like a test or whatever that helps to bring you home. There is no test that makes this work, but I think there's some things that help contribute to it. Number one, hard work. And the two people that you're looking at on the screen, nobody can do the time for them. Nobody deals with the atrocities that they experience in jail, the deprivations of liberty that they experience every day. So they do the majority of the incredibly challenging task of spending every day behind bars, hoping that something positive is going to happen. When, like Sincere and Shalana said, everything around them suggests that they should give up hope and that there's not going to be any positive resolution to their situation. So it's hard work. I think another factor is, as they've alluded to, support. You've got to have, it's your family, it's your friends, it's folks getting on, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, shouting to the heavens, sign up, change.org, all that kind of stuff, petitions to help get me out of the block or whatever. So all that support, I think makes a difference. I think, like Shalana said, faith, it's very difficult to keep a positive attitude, I would imagine, and only they can speak to it when you're spending 15, 20, 30 years behind bars. It's got to be difficult. So I think you've got to have this attitude that even when it seems like things are not going to go well, I've still got a chance. There's a reason to keep on fighting, because if you give up, it's very hard to make anything happen in these situations. I think that luck plays a really big role. I mean, the political climate has kind of got to be right, because as it was for Shalana and for Sincere, I mean, you're really looking at one person who ultimately makes that decision as to whether you get to come home or not. Yeah, there are a lot of different factors that go into it. But if that person's ideology or, the folks around them or whatever it is are saying, we're just going to take this super tough on crime stance and never, grant pardons, it's very difficult to make something like this happen. So I think you have to be a little bit lucky too. And also, like Shalana and Sincere said, there are a lot of people out there who are just as deserving as the folks on this, webinar, whose petitions will not get granted. And that's very unfortunate. That's why we need more resources and more help to help bring these folks home. So, luck has something to do with it. And then I think you have to have a plan also, a plan of how you're going to attack all these stages. But, with Sincere, telling the governor, not only am I ready to come home, but here's what I'm going to do when I get out. I've got a job set up. I've got housing set up. I've got whatever it is, so that I'm ready to hit the ground running when you set me free. So those are some of the things I think help ultimately to bring somebody home.
Thanks for that, Brendan. I was hoping, I'm glad you chimed in, because I was just about to shift things over to you and Cynthia to get your perspective on working on these cases. So for both of you, I would ask, just to start out, why did you take a case through a Return to Freedom project?
So, John, I forgot to thank you, right, when I first started. And I want to stop and just thank you for doing the work you do, doing the work you did during Clemency Project 2014 and being, leaning into freedom for people. So technically, I didn't go through NACDL's project because technically I wasn't Shelena's lawyer in the project. But I believe in NACDL's project because, as criminal defense lawyers and as members of the criminal defense community, I think we have an obligation to help in this way. And the fact that NACDL has provided us with this, streamlined, organized way to help people is important, because I think going it, sort of on your own without the guidance that NACDL provides, without the gravitas that NACDL has, some petitions are maybe less successful. There are 18,000 petitions waiting in the Office of Pardon Attorney right now. And, when you think about the fact that NACDL has been able to get some through, that's reason enough to join and take a case through the NACDL project.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do this because, public service has been ingrained in me from the time that I was little. My mother and father are both principals. My grandmother was a teacher, and my wife is a teacher, all public school folks. And my dad was a military guy, fought in Korea. So sort of, the way that you really define yourself, I think, is by giving back to those in need. And so when I, heard about NACDL's Return to Freedom project, and really it was at kind of a couple of months into COVID, and NACDL partnered up with Virginia ACLU to do the Virginia Redemption Project. And it really was designed to try to provide some kind of compassionate release for prisoners who were suffering from COVID, because it was just spreading like wildfire in prisons as it was all around the country. And so it was really a COVID kind of compassionate release program in the beginning. And so I just happened to get, I volunteered for it, went through the training, had never done anything with pardons or clemency before. And just so happens I got partnered up with a guy who was 3 weeks older than me and who was just as big a fan of Nas as I am. And so, we talked about everything, what we were doing when we were 18 years old, being knuckleheads and making mistakes. And one of us was just a little bit less fortunate than the other. And so, I was all in from the very beginning, but for me, it was about service.
That's what inspired me to get involved at the outset as well. It was about helping other people who really needed it. Thank you both. I guess the quote, it was mentioned earlier, people are more than the worst thing they've ever done. And it's a quote we hear a lot in our line of work. And I'd just like to ask the two attorneys, what does this quote mean to you in the context of the case that you had a role in?
Cynthia, you're welcome to start it off if you want.
Thank you, Brendan. So, I believe that given the right set of circumstances, all of us are capable of doing all of the things that all of us do, right? And, I think about people who have come home, who are brave enough to stand up in front of people and say, this is what I've done. When I'm not called on to do that, right? I'm not called on to say, these are the mistakes that I've made. And also, in our criminal legal system, people go to prison without having done anything wrong too, right? And so when our system treats people as if they are disposable, it harms us all, because I believe that we are all responsible for each other. And so, to take on the position that people are more than the worst they've ever done is just to see their humanity and to connect your own humanity to their humanity. I don't care what folks have been accused of, or maybe what they're even guilty of doing. That's still not who they are. And, I would tell my clients all the time, there's a separation between what you've done and who you are. And I think the more we see that, the more we can embrace each other as brothers and sisters. So, that's what it means to me, that people are more than the worst things they've done.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I don't think I could have said it any better. So I echo what Cynthia says. I think that if you take the position that if you make a mistake when you're younger and that is all that defines you, it is not, you take a view of humanity that is not based in reality. People evolve, people change. The adult brain is not fully formed when you're teenagers. Even when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're impulsive, you make mistakes. We've all made mistakes. Lord knows I'd be in jail if I was caught for some of the stuff that I did when I was younger. But I'm also not, the same idiot 18, 19, 20-year-old that I was. That was, 20 years ago. And I've changed and I've grown and I've evolved. And if somebody, saw me for who I was when I was, a late teenager, early 20-year-old, people may not think much of me either. So, I think that, Cynthia's hit the nail right on the head. You're more than the worst thing that you've ever done. That's the essence of what it means to be given a second chance.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not judged for the worst thing I've ever done either. So I want to turn back to Sincere and Shalana now. I want you to go back to the day that you found out you were finally going home and what that was like for you.
For me, it was, I remember this like it was yesterday for the rest of my life. I was under COVID protocol, sleeping in a gymnasium and in the prison that I was in, Nottoway Correctional Center. And we were actually in the middle of COVID testing, another round of COVID testing for everybody who was in the gym. And the counselor comes and, into the gym and says, look, I need to see you real quick. And, of course, I hadn't had any contact with the outside world for maybe a week or so. No telephone, no visits, no emails, nothing. So I had no idea what was going on. So for a little bit of context, I had an interview with the Pardon and Parole Board maybe a few weeks prior to that. And a few weeks prior to that, I had received a letter saying that the current administration wasn't doing any more pardon and parole reviews. So it was up to the incoming administration to handle my case. So, this was the furthest thing from my mind when they're calling me to the office for something. So I walk into the office and the lady's like, the counselor, she's like, well, you have to make a call. So of course, the first thing that goes to my mind is always bad news. They don't call you in here for, under these kind of circumstances for good news. So I'm thinking, like my heart's racing. I'm like, man, here I am under these conditions and I'm about to receive some bad news from someone. She didn't even know who I was supposed to call. So come to find out, she's like, it's an attorney. So I'm like, all right, well, that's Brendan. But like, still, the bad news is in my mind. So when I finally get to Brendan, he's like, have you gotten any news about your petition, like where it is? And he's not telling me anything yet. He's just asking me questions. So I'm like, no, and now I'm explaining what my conditions have been. And he's like, oh man, well, sit down, or I got something to tell you. And I think my mind kind of went. He says, in the moment that he says, "You're going home, brother," I was like, my mind like just kind of went blank. And I believe he was still talking. I really don't know what he was saying in that moment. I kind of tuned everything out. Even the counselor was sitting at the desk in front of me, and she was excited. And there was another counselor who just happened to walk in at the same moment. And so everybody's excited. I'm crying, I'm emotional, and I still can't hear anything that's going on around me. Like it was like a flood of, emotions. And now I'm now because a part of was the fear of learning something that was going to be negative, and now being relieved of that, and then having the greatest news, in the world to me, was overwhelming. And it still is. But, the next thought was like, I had done it, we had done it, and now like it's just beginning, like I felt like that part of me has been relieved. Like all that 24 years that I had done in there was like, I don't even have to concern myself with that anymore. And then I started to think about, because now I have to step out of this office and go right back into a room of 50 other individuals that didn't get that news. It's one of those, like, it's a moment that is, the greatest moment, in my life to me. But then being faced with individuals that like, right now everybody's kind of excited, but then also the excitement goes from, or the emotion goes from excitement to now, like, I'm going to miss you guys, and, they're going to miss me, and, everybody's hoping the best for me. And now the concern of, what do I do next? Like this next phase of life, what do I do with it? And we just spoke about legacy and identity in the previous question. And that's what was on my mind. Like this entire process for me was all about, taking back my identity and not being identified as the worst person or the worst mistake that I had ever made, in my life as an adolescent. Now the adult me can work on building my legacy so that it outweighs that horrible mistake that I made as a teenager. And that it's something that I can be proud of, my family can be proud of, my community can be proud of. So that's it.
Sincere, I am so amazed and proud of you. I just have to tell you, you're just phenomenal.
Thank you.
Because I understand everything that you have said. And when I found out I was going home, it was under a slightly different protocol. I was called in and told that because I had reached 50% of my time. So I had done 15 of the 30 years. And because I was asthmatic and I had some other medical conditions, that I would qualify for transfer to home confinement under the CARES Act to serve the remainder of my sentence until the COVID national declaration was recalled. And at that point I said, well, do I have to come back? And they said, no, you won't have to come back, but you'll serve the rest of your time on an ankle monitor. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what I sign? And so we did the paperwork, and there was a long line of people in the hallway waiting to find out if they were on this list of people that were being released. And so you would see people go in, and then when they come out, they throw a thumbs up, or, they would look devastated, and we'd either hug them. They got a hug either way. It was either a celebratory hug or a conciliatory hug. And people started to leave, and I wasn't going anywhere. And there were people that signed after me that were going home. And I'm starting to think, okay, is this not going to happen? So I stopped talking to my family about it until I was sure what was going to happen. And when I got a date saying they can pick you up at 8:30 on this day, then I called them and said, hey, I need you guys here at 8 o'clock, because my family's always late, at 8 o'clock. And they got there at 8:45. And until I got in the car and actually drove off, I don't think that it was real to me, but it was so bittersweet because I was leaving so many people behind. And we have a ritual where if you're in the buildings, you flip your light. We have light switches at the camp, and you flip your lights on and off so that the building blinks. And that's how you say goodbye to the people that are leaving. And so when I saw the lights blink and I was jumping and waving at them, my heart was breaking at the same time, because these are people that I'd lived with for decades, and I'm leaving them behind. And it weighed so heavy on me that when I got home, the first thing I did was call Amy Pova. Actually, I called her from the car and I said, hey, I'm out. What can I do to help? We need to bring more people home. And she gave me my first advocacy position. And it has been an amazing thing for me, because when you find what it is that you're designed to do in this life, you don't get up for work every day. You get up because that's what you're called to do. And so advocacy has become my life. I have my own little baby organization called the Araminta Project. And Araminta was Harriet Tubman's real name before she changed it to Harriet. And I chose Araminta because I want to be like Harriet. I'm just one little person. And so I can go back and I can try to fight for one person at a time and get them out. But I also can partner with NACDL and all these other wonderful organizations and help. And I can plead to all of you all that are listening to please sign up and take one case, because you don't know what an impact that's going to have on a life. Whether you win it or not, it doesn't matter. You're going to give hope to that person that's incarcerated. You're going to give hope to their families. You're going to give hope to their children that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you need help, if you don't have time, there are plenty of law students that'll help you with preparing the petitions. If the people have been in for a long time, they probably can help you themselves, because I know Sincere and I did a lot of the legwork on our cases. And Brendan can tell you we're pretty good. And just whatever you can do, I would just, I would plead with you now to just, get with John and NACDL and please sign up, because it makes a difference. And I'm out here every day swinging at the fences, trying to help people come home. But there's so much work to be done. And there's plenty of work to do. So don't feel like you can't do it right now. This quarter, you're busy, you're behind on your billable hours, whatever. Next quarter, there'll still be people. So just, please stay involved. Please, as you are representing people, those of you that do defense work, look at your clients as more than a file. And I know it gets overwhelming. I was there at one time, and you're running from one place to the other. But you have to understand that this is a living, breathing individual. I never thought about what happened to my clients once they went to prison. I would try to get them the best deal, or I would try the best case that I could for them. And of course, you never ask them, did you do it? But the thing that I never asked the question is, how did this happen? What were the factors that led you to be in this position today? And when you find out about some of the things that they went through, you're able to argue more compassionately when you're doing your closing, or when you're interrogating witnesses. You're able to understand the full person. And that makes a huge difference than when you get 10 minutes to scan a file and you're just saying, oh my goodness, they've got 15 prior convictions and whatever. What you didn't know is that they were pimped out as a child, or that their mother and father were both crack or heroin addicts, and they lived in an apartment where they were bitten by rats. And how would you be if that happened to you? So our connection to each other is much greater than what I think many of us assume. We always assume that, oh, well, these are people that just made bad choices for their lives. And, America has a free public school system and people should be able to do better. That is so judgmental and untrue. And you have to look at the full circumstances. And for those of us that have been blessed, you give thanks. And you try to help those others. And so that's what I would just encourage you all to do. Look at the full individual. And, when we come out, Sincere can speak to this as well. Our felony stays with us forever. And it's not as if our sentence is ever over. So you constantly are having to explain, oh, yes, I have a felony. Oh, no, I can't go here. You're on probation. There's so many limitations. So those of you that work in areas that can affect collateral consequences, there needs to be an end to the sentence. It really does, because it never stops. And for white collar defendants, they always say, oh, well, white collar people got it easy. They go to Camp Cupcake. But it's not easy, because after my probation is over, I still have up to 20 years and possibly 40 years if they renew it of paying on a judgment. And so it never ends. And so it affects your ability to vote, your ability to have a firearm, your ability to own a home. You can't live certain places. Certain places won't rent to you. You can't pass a background check for a job. There's so many collateral consequences that need to be rectified. But coming home is the first step to that. I'm sorry, John, I got off topic.
Not at all.
It's my heart.
There are so many comments in the chat while you were speaking, both of you, about how powerful your beautiful stories are, and the way that you're conveying them is so expressive, and we're there with you as you're telling these stories. So thank you so much for being so vulnerable with us today. We really appreciate it. I just want to turn it back over to the attorneys again, because Shalana was talking about how important it is to take a case, even just one case, to touch someone's life for the better. I guess I want to ask you two, why is pro bono work important, and particularly the work through these projects?
And I'll let you go first this time.
Okay. I mean, again, everything for me goes back to, from an attorney standpoint, service. I went to law school to try to help other people. And the best epitome of helping other people are people who need the help the most and can't afford, the $1,000 an hour lawyer in New York City or DC or something like that, but who are suffering under, egregious circumstances. I think it goes without saying that if folks in Shalana and Sincere situations don't have lawyers, their chances of getting a pardon or petition granted or whatever it is go down. And I think that having somebody who's a trained lawyer who's able to help you navigate the system and or articulate things in a certain way or speak to things that may be important factors or motivating factors for the decision makers, I think is critical. But I think it's just, if you went to law school, a part of you went to law school to, help other people. And there's just not enough of that, so much focus on money and billable hours. But I will tell you, this is without a doubt, in my 17 years of practicing now, by far the most rewarding thing that I've ever been a part of as a lawyer. I not only was what we did successful, but I gained a lifelong friend. Sincere and I pretty much talk every single day now. And we feel like we're, kind of brothers, with different mothers or whatever you want to say. And he's just going to be a part of my life and me a part of his life forever. That's something that, what a tragedy it would have been had, I'd not taken on that pro bono case, or if Sincere hadn't sought, some pro bono services. We never would have gotten connected. It changed my life. This whole experience changed my life. I can say that unequivocally.
That was beautiful, Brendan. My Twitter handle is Justice is Love. And I think my job is to love, right? And the way I show love is to try to seek justice. And in this case, mercy inside this criminal legal system. I think, Shalana really provides you the best example of why pro bono work is important, because, what she said is, there are other people who need help. And even though she's been through what she's been through, and Sincere has been through what he's been through, their heart wants to help. They want to go back into the belly of this beast and help, even though they have every right to come out and look forward and never look back. And my experience is that a majority of the people who are in cages, right, because of our criminal carceral system, have this kind of heart. And so, it's our responsibility, I think it's our duty, but it's our privilege to work to liberate people with these beautiful hearts. It's like, it's a waste to have such wonderful souls living in cages. It's wrong. It's just wrong. And so, because we have a license, right, that allows us to help in this way, as they say, to whom much is given, much is required. I think it's our responsibility to at least try, to help.
Well
And I'll
said.
just, very well said by both of you. And I'll just make a very quick plug for the Return to Freedom Project, which is this. If you do volunteer, you will receive all the resources and all the consultation and the training that you need to have the best chance possible of bringing someone home. And so you have our support. And so that, I think, is really distinguishes this project, is that you do have all of that support all along the way. Our attorneys on staff are answering questions at all times of the day, reviewing draft motions. We've done training that we've recorded and have up on our website. We have samples for anyone who wants to review those to guide them so that they know what goes into a successful petition. I'm very pleased to say, I think, for the individuals who reach out for help, they may even be better off with a pro bono attorney through our project in some cases than, just another, paid retained attorney, because of the quality of the work that goes into these petitions and motions. So I'm sorry, I'll stop. I'll stop at that. But I just want to turn it back. We're running out of time here, so I just have time for maybe one or two more questions. And I'd like to ask Sincere and Shalana, we talked about what it was like when you found out you were going home. I want to ask you, lastly, how has your life been since your release? And perhaps a little bit about what you're looking forward to.
Okay, well, for me, it's been a bit tumultuous. I was initially, upon me learning that I was being released, I had received the clemency. I had a home plan to go back to Boston, where I'm from, and since, okay, I don't know if I froze or not.
We can still hear you.
Okay, yes. Since then, immediately I was told that no, I need to have a home plan for Virginia, or I can't go anywhere, and it may take up to 30 days for this process to go through. If I still continue to pursue Boston as being my home plan. So I immediately, reached out to everyone and anyone that I knew. Unfortunately,
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit there, Sincere. I'll tell you what, why don't you try to get your internet situation fixed a little bit while I turn it up. I'll turn it over to Shalana.
Hello?
Oh. Yeah, your internet's cutting out a little bit, Sincere.
So, yeah, there's a really bad storm, and it's messing with the Wi-Fi on my phone and computer, so I'm trying to go back and forth.
Okay, we can hear you now.
As I was saying, it's been kind of tumultuous. However,
poor baby.
Oh, did we lose? No. Oh dear. Shalana, can you take over while he tries to get the internet resolved?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Since I've been home, it has been amazing. I have gotten to bond with my daughter. When I left, she was 3.5, about to turn 4, and she had this little Barbie car that she liked. And then the day that I left prison, she picked me up driving. And she just got into the master's program for business. And I'm so excited and so proud of her. And she is truly a living example that you can parent from prison, because I was always mama, even though I was away. And I got home in time. My mother was diagnosed with dementia and my father has early onset Alzheimer's, and they both live with me now. So whereas they took care of my daughter and they took care of me all those years that I was away, I get to return the favor now, and it's a labor of love. I am involved very deeply in state and federal advocacy. Cynthia knows, she'll see me pop up on all sorts of Zoom calls and everything that I can attend to get more knowledge. So please feel free to take my email and invite me to anything. I will come. It's all about relationship building, and I feel that I'm uniquely situated, having been an attorney and then having been incarcerated and then having been freed. I have a lot to say about all three areas. And so I'm able to really explain to attorneys about what it's like on the inside and the things that you need to consider oftentimes as you're entering into plea agreements, and the different things that we see and how it can affect them later when new laws and things come along. I also am very involved in policy and legislation so that when these laws are passed and they're made, they actually have teeth. So I weigh in on a lot of things as far as that goes. But yeah, life has been wonderful. I'm just so incredibly blessed.
Thank you, Shalana. Sincere, do we have you back on?
Yes, I'm
Great.
going back and forth. It just seems to go out, but yes, I'm back.
Great. So what are you looking forward to, and what has it been like since you got out?
Well, I'm looking forward to all the blessings that life has for me moving forward. I am also looking forward to making sure that I give back to my family, my community, and society as a whole. Like, I'm now a benefit and an asset to my family, my community. So, and I'm a part of the collective now. Being incarcerated, they take all that stripped from me. So I'm looking forward to that, to being a part of the collective. It's been a tumultuous ride, but I'm here now. I've made it through. So for the last 24 years, all of the trials and tribulations that I've been through, nothing can compare to those 24 years. There are no problems out here that I can't overcome. So I'm great. I'm blessed.
Wonderful. Well, just in closing, I want to say we've heard from Shalana and Sincere, and they've made mention of that they've referred to their family a few times. And I think something that we may have glossed over a little bit is that these sentences are not only sentences for the individual who's incarcerated, but they're also sentences for their loved ones who have to live their lives separated from their daughters, their sons, their husbands and wives. And so we can't forget just the ripple effect that one sentence has on society as a whole. It really does tear families apart. And I'm so glad that you two have been reunited now, and can join with your loved ones again in celebrating life. And again, if anybody here was inspired to take a case, please reach out to me. Check out our Return to Freedom page, nacdl.org/freedom. I want to thank all of the panelists for joining today. Your words were tremendously inspiring for me, and I've been doing this for some time now. Just brings new life into the work, and I think into the commitment to this work. So thank you so much. Monica, do we have time to take a couple of questions, or do we need to wrap it up? What do you think?
We need to wrap it up. But if anyone has to or wants to reach out to our panelists, they have been shared. Contact information has been shared in the chat. So we definitely encourage you to do that. And hopefully you've gotten in our sort of non-subtle ways, the importance and the urging for those who can to take on cases and consider volunteering through NACDL's Return to Freedom project. Again, you can reach out to John L. Baines. He's our legal director for the project. There are a number of initiatives under the project that range from trial penalty to excessive sentencing to COVID, as well as a number of state-specific projects. So we definitely encourage you to do that. This is, again, our sort of kickoff for the month of programming. We have 2 other virtual events coming up later in April that's going to be looking at second look sentencing, really another good mechanism for getting folks released and returned home and offering a second chance at freedom. And then also one that's going to be looking at collateral consequences, specifically that relates to juries and diversity on juries. And so we hope you can join, you'll be able to join us April 14th and April 21st for those 2 programmings. We'll be lifting up this message throughout the entire month, and you can actually help us do that if you'd like. We have shared some resources in the chat, one that is sort of a toolkit that really has a lot of these inspiring messages included. So you can take exactly from the toolkit, the language, the graphics, and feel free to share it as well and lift up this message around second chances throughout the month of April. It includes actually 2 stories from 2 of our panelists, so Brendan and Sincere, who recorded very short videos for us to talk about sort of succinctly what we've talked about today. So what it was like to take on a case and tell someone that they're going home, and what it was like to get that message that they're going home. So we have videos from Brendan, Sincere, and 4 other individuals, both attorneys and those who've been released through the projects, that tell us the importance of second chances, what it means to them, and what it was like to get the news that they were going home. So we thank you again so much for attending. Share this. The recording will be available in the coming weeks, and it'll be available for free and posted on our website. So we'll share that and make sure that you get that notice once it becomes available. Complete our survey. Let us know how you enjoyed today's programming. What you thought of today's programming, and if you'd like to hear more of these stories and NACDL's future programming as well. But again, I will close there and just want to thank everyone for joining and echoing John's thank you to all of our panelists today.